Welcome back to the Agentic Insider. I'm your host, Philip Swan. In this show, we explore cutting-edge ideas and trends in AI and data, as well as hear from other industry thought leaders in the AI space. This podcast is brought to you by Iridius AI, committed to safe and responsible AI innovation. Let's dig in. Welcome to this week's edition of the Agentic Insider. I'm joined by my co-host Alistair, and we have an amazing guest with us today. He is an AI enthusiast. He encourages safe and compliant integration of AI technologies. He has over 2 years of experience in information security, working with companies such as Shell and Lloyds Banking. And yes, he's in the UK, but more importantly, he is living in the part of the world where my wife and I are going to hopefully have a vacation house and spend significant time, which is in the lovely Duchy of Cornwall. In addition to all of his great work that he's doing, he's actively involved with AI security events such as RSA and is the head of security at Philip Morris International. Ray Ellis, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So Ray, could you give us a little bit of background on yourself, right? Of how you got in your career, how you developed your career to where you are today?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. So look, for me, it's a bit of a long journey. So I'm ex-military. So I was in the Royal Tank Regiment for quite a while in the UK Army, and I decided after a while of doing that I don't particularly like working on tanks. So I kind of left because they're dirty and they're heavy and they kind of anyway. So I decided to leave, and then got into IT. So obviously doing call center, help desk type stuff as you come out, and then obviously you progress naturally with your career and become a designer and an architect, and then started working at BT doing lots of security stuff with BT, and then obviously just progressed from there. So as I said, I left BT and then worked at Shell, helped do lots of deployments and rolls out of Office 365 and SharePoint migrations and lots of identity access management kind of capabilities in Shell. Then I thought, well, I want to work for a company that does IT security a bit better. So I left Shell and went and worked for Lloyds Banking Group. And I was there for quite a few years. Lots of bleeding edge technology we worked on delivering there, like obviously deception denial and endpoint security and lots of kind of other strategy kind of positions. And then the opportunity arose in PMI. So I kind of like moved across then into kind of PMI and started doing the PMI was on a digital transformation. We're now doing lots of smoke-free kind of endeavors across the world, and they had to change their operating model. So they need a lot more security controls. So we come in, wrote loads of standards, wrote loads of controls, led the security architecture team to deliver security roadmaps for the kind of the organization, and we pushed the organization from like a relatively we're in a lot better place now than we were originally when we started this journey like 5 years ago, and then obviously because I'm obviously a security architect, originally a security architect, we're always looking at the future, like quantum computing and all sorts of looking to say what we need to do, and kind of, as I said, zero trust and various other kind of capabilities. We were always pushing the strategies of how that goes and that moves forward. So AI was just a natural progression. So it's like, okay, this is going to be a big thing. So I positioned a couple of years ago, to the senior leadership team that we need to kind of focus on this in more effort. Obviously that got a buy-in. Obviously I think everything else kind of triggered it alongside. I got a buy-in, and then we kind of started to own all of the AI initiatives within Philip Morris security initiatives, and pushed it forward. And there's obviously we've had it's been a massive learning curve, which is fine. We had in our team, we were quite lucky because we do recruit quite a lot of people. So we did have quite a few people that had PhD in AI as well. So we could bounce some of the stuff on there. We do lots of machine learning stuff in Philip Morris anyway, because there's lots of research and development going on. So we had kind of like a premise of it, but it was literally we need to kind of start to drive the security, obviously in Philip Morris. We need to kind of like to say, well, how can we make this is secure for the rest of the organization to do it, because we know the rest of the organization is going to be using AI. So we obviously wrote a strategy to say, look, these are the three kind of the pillars that we wanted to do. As I said, drive security, make sure that the security framework and guardrails are in place, and the controls, the standards, user guidances, and all those types of things, and training were in place for other people to understand how we do that. And then we need to look at it from internally from an infosec point of view. It's like, how can we use this ourselves to do that? And then obviously so that was kind of start of that, and then obviously lots of, as I said, get involved in the governance to make sure that the thing. So it's kind of just been like an ongoing activity. It hasn't really stopped. But obviously the big challenge, which obviously you guys are very familiar with the topic of the podcast, was agents. Now this is kind of a little bit of a paradigm shift. So we're like, okay, well, we were doing AI original kind of when it started off, and now we need to kind of pivot to say, well, let's do the same thing for agents and move forward and push on that one.
There's definitely a lot of hype around agentic systems, agentic this, agentic that. And that's the thing that we work very hard to cut through the noise on that. But Ray, what future are you solving for?
But so look, every single organization in the world will be using AI in some form or another.
Yeah.
It's without shell. You can see, we look at any vendors that the big vendors that we're talking to, they're all trying to push obviously AI capabilities. Now I'm going to InfoSec Europe next week, and I can guarantee you every single vendor will be mentioning AI. Right, so that's kind of that we know it's the future. We know everyone's going to be doing, and they're going to get left behind. But what we care about, and obviously what we care about in InfoSec in Phillip Morris, is like, well, how can we do it securely? We don't want to be making the front news of a newspaper or whatever it is, whatever it is, because we've made a mistake. We want to do it in a secure manner, like everything else we're trying to do. We want to stay ahead of the game. So that's kind of our constant ongoing. We're trying to make sure that we can make sure the business can leverage the capabilities, and it offers brand new, awesome capabilities, but we need to do it in a secure manner. And give people the education and training to do that. So, which is obviously what our primary focus is.
Sure. I mean, so the Philip Morris, International, it's a huge multinational. Okay. And you've got to look broadly at AI security if I replay this back and see if I understand it, the three pillars that you're really focused around are driving that security side of things. Okay. Understanding how Philip Morris International PMI will actually use it, and then finally driving the governance for it. Is that fair?
From the security point of view, yeah, we don't work obviously independent with the governance, but obviously we've got legal teams and privacy teams and copyright teams and all sorts there. So it's not an independent thing, and obviously responsible AI and sustainability and all that.
So from a drive security, one of the things that I know that we talked about before was that you had built some quite unique training approaches, and you were looking to do the same thing again to be able to ensure that every person felt that it was their job to be able to, to actually drive that AI security, so that they were able to be equipped with a set of, the way to think about this. Can you talk a little bit more, what you can share around what you've been doing there?
Yeah. Also, there's I would drop the links potentially, with you guys afterwards, so people can play it. So one of the things that I like to do is obviously I grew up, obviously in the 1990s and early 2000s. And we used to remember the books that used to play, the choose your own adventure books when you get to page 10 and whatever. So I kind of like that concept of learning kind of, and learning by osmosis is kind of the concept. So we created created a couple of we called them AI Hunter, which is a bit, because it's a bit catchy. So we've got the first one, which is AI Hunter, a new risk, which is about, this is a new concept. You need to speak to the SOC, you need to speak to the CTI team. You need to speak to, so you're literally kind of going through the journey about how you're playing it yourself. You can do it on your mobile phone or whatever. So how you go through this journey about playing this game to learn about what the cyber risks are. But you can also play as an attacker. So your mission is to attack the cyber. So you look at it from that angle as well. And then you can also play as a lawyer if you want to be a fun police, and you can look to see about how to kind of, defend it from a legal point of view. So we did that first game, really, really successful. Took off really well, and we obviously loads of people started using it and playing with it. As I said, it's open there if anyone wants to play and tweak it for their organization. That's perfectly fine as well. And then the second one was called Agent Strike Back. All right, so AI Hunter 2 Agent Strike Back, and this is all about agents and about the security risk of agents. So it's the same concept. You can play as an attacker, defender, and kind of a legal person, and your missions, you've got different missions in that one to try and do certain things with AI. So it's literally we're gamifying kind of this one, and the recent one which I've done is Return of the Governance. So it's obviously very Star Wars themed, but it's this one's about how you go. So you're an attacker, but you're an insider now. So trying to attack governance processes inside the organization to try and get an AI to do something that you don't want it to do. And then obviously the idea is the defenders and the legals, they're trying to defend that and ask certain questions and do some things. But it's all about, as I said, trying to do training via osmosis in a fun, more way, which you can, is portable, really.
So, I mean, one of the things that's interesting here is you must have seen that. I mean, this seems not only super innovative, but it felt you must have seen a lot of adoption being driven as you measured this in that respect. Are you finding that people are very receptive to this, and it's actually increasing their not only their awareness but then their activity around the security side?
And it's not just that, it's the engagement as well. So we've had people come up and go, "Can we do something like that?" Yeah, no, let's do some more of these types of things. And one of the other, I know this is kind of, it's slightly a bit different. It's on the pivot on the similar kind of concept for Cyber Awareness Month last month. Obviously in November or whenever it is, we did lots of kind of AI training. So AI prompt training. So some people created loads of games. But we like games like it was Flappy Bird, Hacky Bird, not Flappy Bird. There was Cyber Snake, one of the things, and then there was another one was like a tower defense game. And the idea is you got to do cyber security activities. But what we made them do, what people did, is use AI to generate it, right? So prompt it, and it's not because. And these are people that don't know coding, right? So this is quite a simple thing. We're not asking them to do anything dangerous or complicated, but it was to enhance their coding skills. Sorry, not the coding skills, their prompting skills. Because you've got to try and get it to do something. It doesn't work, okay? Try and get it to. So it's kind of that kind of like, kind of get people to do it with a purpose, which is a fun purpose, to try and get them to deliver, be better at using kind of the tools, which will then, when they come to their work, they're going to get better at it, and they've played the other games, so they understand some of the risks as well. So yeah, all these activities, it's kind of making learning more fun than it traditionally has been.
And that's where my follow-up to that question, Ray, is: are you running these as tabletop exercises, or how are you structuring?
Yeah, last year was a tabletop exercise kind of concept, and this we're going to do that. I plan to do the same this year as well. For AI, exactly the same thing for AI, but we're going to expand it a bit further, and I want to make it more kind of like a hackathon, but without kind of hacking, because we're not hacker, but it's a game of fun. So it's kind of like to try and make people to do it's literally just to up the skill, give them a prize and all that type, make it more fun and innovative for people to kind of get it. Because I still find, I don't know if you guys do, when you speak to some people that are not in IT, some people don't get it still, right? They don't understand it. And you're like that, well, you're not using it. Once you see what it can do and how you can use it, and the better you get at it, the better you're going to be obviously at using it, and the more effective you're going to be, etc.
Yeah, I mean, gamification is a huge way of being able to drive engagement. It really is. I mean, I know that Moderna a couple of years ago basically gamified the approach to saying, hey, look, we want the best use cases that you could possibly come up with from anyone in the company around AI. Okay. And so, come up with what you think we could do to crack the real problems. And over the course of, a couple of months, they got so many different use cases coming in. And the prize was to be able to come and present, be traveled, be flown over to headquarters, present in front of the CEO and the board of all of these different things, and then have them put into production. Okay, so you sort of got a 5-star trip to be able to see your thing being done. So I mean, gamification of these sorts of things, from education awareness as well as in the terms of the use cases, is an amazing tool.
But we did the same. We didn't do the same thing, but we hosted lots of round table events, kind of workshop events, where we like that. Literally, everybody can write down. So with the post-it notes, write down how you think AI can infect your specific space, your area, right? So we did it for the Inside InfoSec. It was a very captive audience, so about 150 people or so. So we got it, and everyone wrote down their ideas, and we ended up. I'm not joking. We ended up with like 175, 150 ideas. Right, some of them, don't get me wrong, some of them were really, really good, but some of them weren't that great. But that's also fine, because what I said to people, and I said, look, there's no such thing as a bad idea, right? Because if you give a bad idea, you're going to read it and go, well, I can make that better. And what I also did, which maybe I would do it slightly different, I did say to the leadership team, I don't want you there. Right? I don't want the lead. I don't want the senior leadership because people are not going to be afraid of putting a rubbish idea. Now you can put a rubbish idea in front of me. I think it's awesome because obviously it's going to lead to a better idea. But they were afraid. So I was trying to move that human barrier. And as I said, we ended up with loads and loads of ideas. The problem that we had afterwards, by the way, was how do I now prioritize all these ideas? Right? How do we filter out this? That was a bit more of a challenge, but yeah, that's obviously a lesson learned from everyone, really.
So on the triage part of those ideas, which leads into the question, so how do you determine, you know, which are you looking at business outcomes when you select these use cases? Are you looking at the ease of implementation versus the returns? I mean, what would be your evaluation criteria for those use cases?
So what literally just finishing off. So we've defined. So we're in Phillip Morris. We've got a big list, well, not a big list. We've got a list of our top cyber threats that we have, right? So we, the kind of the ones that we're worried about that the tracking, right? So we've got that. We've got those top lists, and then we've got obviously we like productivity gains. So we created this kind of or matrix, which obviously ironically we've now pushed. Automated, and it goes through a large language model to give us the answer, and we then double check it. But the idea is it comes up with two scores. It comes up with an information productivity score, which is how we think this is going to be save time, save effort, reduce, kind of whatever. How business values are going to give us, and then we've got another score called the information security value. So we have an IPS, an IPV and an ISV, right? And they're both scored out of 150. And then we've kind of got like this automatic plotting thing on like a Gartner hype scale, if you will. So the top right is high score in both of these, and the bottom left is low score in both of them. So we like that. Well, we want everything that's the top right. They're the ones that we're going to do first, and we can start to prioritize it logically based on that. So it's a very and we show it as as that type of score. So like when we present it to the senior leadership team, they can go, "Why aren't we doing all those?" Well, cool, give us the money. We're going to do it, kind of thing. Yeah. But that's how we're breaking it down, and that took a little while to get that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. And what kind of successes have you been experiencing from following that process?
We have rolled out some really good use cases. I can't go into too much detail about what they specifically are, but we have had, as I said, there has been some that they've gone down, and what's happened, and this goes back to what I said before about kind of like the rubbish idea. One of these was a really, really good idea. And then when we put it to the architects and the developers and the AI architect, and the kind of people to help develop, they went, well, we can do extra. We can, instead of just doing what you're doing, we can do all these other things as well. And then we make it very, very agentic. So it comes up, it does a certain activity, then it goes and checks. It takes a prompt, it takes us like an input, then it goes and checks something over here, then it goes and checks something over here. We haven't got it doing things like updating things automatically yet, but it's doing loads of checking and then come back and going, yeah, that's like a really good thing. So this one's about software checking software vulnerability. Sorry, software when people are requesting software, because it's really hard to kind of go into the details of. So like when someone puts a request in for a big software in a massive organization, that we need someone from security to review it. Now that takes time and effort and it's resource intensive, but if we can get a large language model to do it, which we have done on this instance, then it can go away and check our internal CMDB. It can go away and check to see if this is a valid use case or if there's a valid bit of software that we're using already, or we're using anything similar. And if it isn't, then we can go away and look, and it will go and do a risk assessment. We give it this massive big score, and it goes off and does loads of checks, and it comes back and say, yeah, this is an okay bit of software. If it's we give it a risk rating. If it's within the boundary of acceptability, they can install it, and there's other things they can then got the ticket to say this has been checked by security, it's been checked by a large language model, it's a low score in thing. But if they're trying to do something like Jack the Ripper, for example, if they want to install that software, it's going to come back and go no, right? And then the answer is no, so they're never allowed to install it. So that's kind of how we're taking out the human element of that and obviously replaced it with an agentic approach.
So how does Philip Morris think about agents? How do you think about agents?
Honestly, the bit that's worrying me for now, and I don't know the answer yet. We're working on figuring out how we're going to fix this and looking into it, is how we're going to manage the identities and the permissions within the agents and how we're going to track that. So obviously this is like, obviously we're going to have are we going to need an AI orchestrator for the agents? I don't know. That's an idea. How are we going to be doing like a UEBA, but kind of for an agent. I don't know how we're going to have the behavior. One of the things I'm trying to define at the moment in one of the controls that I'm writing is like, if you're going to do an agent or going to create an agent, you must define what its purpose is, what the activities you wish to do, and then like how do we map that to kind of our current, IAM tools, or do we not? Do we need new ones? Do we have create service accounts? Because we already have service accounts already. Do we need a new service account so we can distinguish it from the other service accounts? Literally, there's so many questions like that. I don't really know the answers to all of them yet, but I know people are wanting to do this. It was like that. Well, at the moment, we're just limiting, like to Copilot or whatever it is. But it is a challenge that we're struggling with at the moment.
I hear you completely. I mean, the need to be able to give an agent not just its goal and its task, but its constitution and its ethics and how it needs to work in Philip Morris if it's going to do its job, which would be different than if it was working in Disney or Starbucks. Not only that, it's also, to your point, the entitlements. So not just the behaviors, but, what is it entitled to do? Okay. How do you know that it's being audited? What are you getting telemetry from it? Okay. How do you ensure that it's only doing those things that it is entitled to do? And how do you define those entitlements in a way that makes sense? Especially where, as Philip Morris tests different multi-agent systems, how on earth they share across different certificate authorities for these sorts of things as well. So it's the complexity of this is absolutely huge.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's a bit hard, and it's a figure. I don't know if anyone's got the answer completely yet. So.
Yeah, so this is actually one of the core design elements in our own product, the Radius Solution Factory, is exactly what you're discussing. So, love to have a deeper conversation on that, because that is exactly one of the problems we're solving. But going back to you have to protect the brand. I mean, the brand, your customers, your employees, its safety, its responsibility, because we all know that AI run amok can be dangerous and is dangerous. And we all have a shared responsibility in making sure that it's it's good for it's good for everybody, right? So we have a premise within our company where it's good for people and good for the planet within our own company ethos. But when you're looking at within Philip Morris, what are some of the challenges that you've faced in getting new technology adopted into? I mean, we've talked about some of the change management aspects that you've done in the training, but beyond that, what are some of the challenges of introducing new technology into a company like PMI?
We have a very strict kind of third-party risk assessment process that we have to align. The interesting thing is that we are challenging, ironically, and I think AI is one of the drivers for challenging it. So we have like this, as I said, this kind of process where you have to kind of be like a very mature company with certain value or whatever, which is fine, right? Because I understand it from the traditional way of doing stuff. They want the big players that are not going to go bust, right? But with AI, and this is the thing that I personally think that we're going to have like a little bit of a paradigm shift on. With AI, we're going to have to maybe start to look at smaller companies more innovative companies to fix niche problems, because we can't rely or wait for the big companies. Some of the big companies' USPs they're disappearing because of AI. The AI is such a game changer and a leveler that they're going to have to change. So that's something that we are looking into. We have spent quite a lot of time with the legal team, with obviously our third party risk team, that we've got a specific. We have like quite a lot of effort doing in that. So we have sort of spent a lot of time with them, looking to see what the impact would be on this one, and then obviously the whole third party. When we start to look at using AI specifically when it's a third party, how does that? Because third party risk is a bit different with AI, and how does it kind of work, and what changes do we need to do? And at the moment, we're still in that we've got a really good idea and we're developing it as we go. But then, as I said, this will always, it's never ending. It keeps us employed, right? But it's a never ending activity. But yeah, we are kind of very, very strict on our kind of controls on third party risks.
Yeah, I mean, third-party risk is huge. I mean, you take Microsoft as an example. Microsoft requires independent audits of anyone who's selling non-first-party AI to Microsoft itself as a supplier. So If you're going and selling to Microsoft and you're going to use a tool that's Copilot, well, okay, Microsoft built it, that's fine. You're going to use Azure's version of OpenAI, that's fine too. But if you're going to start modeling, you're going to start holding it on your own tenant, you're going to start building your own language models, you're going to go and develop something completely new. What you end up doing is have to go through quite a significant amount of third-party auditing to ensure that you get there with, formal red teaming. You need to be able to have, ongoing health and safety, or health monitoring of the ongoing AI applications. Okay, you have to be able to clearly understand what the use cases are and which ones are sensitive from a societal perspective. And then every time something changes, whether it's hallucinating or drifting, or just simply because you changed the application, then all of that has to be recalculated and republished. So there's the amount of third-party requirements on suppliers that even Microsoft put out has gone through the roof. And that's because Microsoft wants to transfer the risk to the third parties to have them take it on. And they really are saying, prove to me your AI is something I would be willing to procure, and it doesn't increase my attack surface to the best ability. And I think that's a huge thing. And I think that most suppliers over time are going to be doing exactly the same thing.
Well, yeah, we've got, ironically, we were spending quite a long time. So we've got like contractual, if we're going to be working with a small an AI company, we are telling them what our AI terms and conditions are for the use of that. But we also, when we're looking at the big vendors that we're looking, we'll go and we want you to show us how you're ISO 42001 compliant, for example, or you're compliant with the EU Act, or how you are mitigating certain things. And if you're not, right, then this is the one that we're going to be looking at internally. So if we take Salesforce, for example, or SAP, it doesn't matter, big companies that we're looking to, they've all got AI capabilities. They're all rolling their AI capabilities out all the time inside their own solutions. At the moment, we're reviewing every single review or change within inside there. So, and it's like, this is not feasible. It's not sustainable moving forward. But if we can get those big companies to say, do you know what? It's like a SOX 2 Type 2 report. If we are doing all these things, these are the controls we're putting in place, and we'll do it. And we look at it and we go from a legal point of view and a security point of view, we go, okay, that's cool. Every now and then we'll do a check, but you carry on doing it. You're staying within the boundaries of that, as long as you're not pulling data from outside of where your source is, and it's also trained inside there, and it obviously stays inside your environment. Then potentially we can just let the business use your AI capabilities in that, and you can carry on developing it. But as soon as you step out of our guide rails, or as soon as you start creating external chatbots, or as soon as you start doing anything that's classed as high risk within EU Act or something, then yeah, we want to have a conversation, right? But then when what we're doing is, from a security point of view, we're pushing the onus now on the business owner or the solution service manager to say, you're now responsible to make sure that vendor stays within the guardrails that we've given you, right? If they're not, then obviously we'll be having words. But that's kind of, because otherwise it's just, we'll be reviewing every single thing that they're changing, and they're doing so many, it's just not feasible.
Yeah, so switching gears a little bit, Ray, you clearly have been having a ton of success in what you're doing. I'd like to turn the conversation a little bit more towards lessons learned from things that haven't gone quite so well. Are there some, as you're trying to introduce things, how you've handled that, it doesn't necessarily have to be around AI, but just in general, how you handle the situations when things don't go as planned?
Look, the biggest thing that we've learned, personally I've learned, is as we're moving forward, and it's ironically not unique, but it's more challenging when it comes to within the AI space. Is like when a new solution comes in, or when traditionally before AI come in, when someone wants to bring in a new solution to the organization, they would go through a normal stage gate process of design check. And what we've obviously at the moment, we've got an ideation check, kind of POC check, and then pilot and check, and kind of it moves on through that kind of processes like that. And there's still designs. We're learning as what we've learned, as definitely is like the design elements that we need to understand for the ideation. They need to be clearer up front. So people need to start to understand more. And it's like, because typically this is okay for architects, because they kind of get this anyway. So when I would talk about they know what the business process are and the impact of the business process, what you're trying to do. They know typically what the data is and the attributes that you're going to be using for this thing, and they know who the actors are and the people are going to be involved in that. That's what an architect will typically know, because they'll be doing that. But when you speak to the business who was trying to develop an AI solution, they don't know these things, right? So we're having to cannot educate them, but kind of say, you can do what you want to do, but you need to give us all this information, but you may not have access to an architect. So we're trying to give them that so they can give us like a mini architecture, not an architecture design, but like a mini solution overview of what they're trying to do, so we can understand the risk better, and but also it's making the business owners and the service owners understand the risks better as well, because as I said, the lesson learned is we didn't do that from the beginning, right? And then we found out later on, we're like, well, hang on, you shouldn't be, they were like, we're doing this. We're like, well, that's not what you originally said, right? Because obviously they didn't really understand it, or they didn't articulate it well. So it was kind of a lesson. Try to deal with the relevant people and have, you're used to traditionally used to talking to the relevant, the people with the relevant skill sets, and to provide the information that you want in the format. Now you're dealing with people that don't have those skill sets, but you still need the relevant information. So it's been a bit of a challenge from that point of view, which has been cool, because obviously we've managed to kind of do it anyway. But it was something that we should have, anticipated earlier. But these things obviously they're, to try us and keep us employed. But as I said, I don't particularly mind it, but it's just one thing that I wish I would have known more when we move forward. Because one thing I do just to say, the way, and obviously in InfoSec, the way we've matured in this space as well. So originally it was like, as I said, it was a bit more less structured, but now honestly, I've got like a spreadsheet with all the risks in and all the concerns that we have for the business. Now they're tied to our kind of risk profile solution. And it's literally, we just go through and we give them a maturity score, right? And say, you're going to do hallucinations or whatever. You need some controls to stop hallucinations, or prompt injection, or whatever it is, those types of things. So we literally track them and go, this is what you need to do to go to the next forward. Go away and do it. And it's dead easy, so we can make it, usable for anyone, really.
You're talking about, how you're maturing now in your ability to be able to analyze and assess the risks, and then guide on how to remediate during that. But how do you see, it's going to be a hard question, but if you were to, see yourself in a year or 2 years' time, how do you think your role as the head of AI security at Philip Morris will change? What do you think will be different about how you're doing your work? And because you've got a plan for a future that could go in many different directions. So how do you think that your work would be different if we were talking, 1 or 2 years from now?
So I know we're already trying to decentralize all the assessments. So obviously a big global company, each region has its own security concerns, mainly legal concerns. So we're trying to decentralize that as much as possible to the different regions. So we've got the RESOs, the regional security officers, now doing this. So they're taking on board, hopefully, quite a lot of the activities will be there for central activities or central things. And as I said, with the other things that we're doing, we're trying to fast track or kind of allow people to have the kind of the vendors do, the checks. So we're hopefully going to see a downturn in some of the assessments that we need to do. But the maturities, because we've put other controls in place to, and other people doing it. So we're spreading the kind of the experience around. And as everyone else's maturity comes up and rises in this space as well, people are getting more acute and aware of what they need to do as well. So we're going to see less and less things. So originally it was no one knew anything. They want to do everything, and we had to slow them down to make sure they did it. But as we're getting mature, everyone's getting there. So I think I'll definitely be doing less of those type of activities, which is fine, which is good, because obviously there's plenty of other stuff. Ironically, I'm in the middle of writing kind of what the strategy potentially is that I'm going to be looking into next year. So there's lots of, as I said, there's lots of activities that I think we're going to be focusing on for the next few years. And I think my local focus is looking to see how we can leverage AI better inside cybersecurity. So it's kind of that more the cat and mouse and threat modeling and red teaming, and literally working with all the other areas to see how we can automate as many, because it's kind of lot automation, but how we can leverage the intelligence that AI can bring inside the cyber security. One of the things that I'd like to do, and we're still discussing how we're going to feasibly do this, is kind of like have an innovation lab, so like a cyber innovation lab, so we can allow people to instead of having that workshop that I said about where we learned and we ask people just tell them to go and do it, right? Just go and play, right? And then given that, and then I'd like it to be an objective that they have to have played certain, have to have, tempered with a few ideas themselves, and then let people, because I said it's a maturity thing. Everyone's going to mature on this one, all our team has just been really done is we've just done it quicker because we had to build the foundation for everyone else.
And that's actually the core of what our platform, the Reduce Solution Factory, does. Not to do a pitch for our product here, but I will. But it does allow that rapid innovation for people to go and play with natural language, with images, meeting notes, whatever they're wanting to do, to bring in and actually start that ideation process where you're actually seeing the thing, whatever the solution is running, it's already running, matching your governance, your compliance requirements, everything from the ground up. What you're doing is actually very mature vis-a-vis many companies that we talk to. So it sounds to me, and this is where my question is going, that the board and the C-level executives within Philip Morris are actually supportive of AI.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's a big thing, and definitely gotten support from some of the the senior leadership team within InfoSec as well.
That's cool. So let me just try one more question. So a lot of times when we talk about security, it's about how we protect the castle, how we make sure we defend it, how we protect everything that's inside it. Okay, what sort of things are more exciting about the future? What you're in the middle of AI, you're seeing everything that's happening, okay, and the exponential growth that's currently going on. What is it that really excites you about where the future is going from what you're seeing at the moment?
So look, it's from a security point of view, we're going to get visualization and information about stuff we never saw before, which we know that, but it's weird because in InfoSec we've had the premise or the promise of kind of UEBA type kind of EDR type stuff for a while. So it's kind of, but we haven't really maybe done it in organizations as well as we should have done. But this is now going to help everybody doing this. So I see. Ironically, I think there's going to be more productivity gains than anything else, which is going to allow other people to focus on other activities, which is cool. Obviously, we'll ever want to be upskilling. But then obviously, I think in the future, we're going to have challenge. I don't know where quantum is in this space. I don't know how quickly that's going to, I know like if you send a rocket into space, for example, they're saying you've got to use quantum proof encryption because they know already. I know we've already in Philip Morris, we've already started to kind of write strategies on activities that we should start to do to get ready for quantum computing. But I don't know how that impacts with I don't know yet how it's going to play off against with AI and what the impact is. I can see that if it could go, it could blow up and we could end up having something that we can't control or whatever. I don't know yet because, as I said, we're looking into still where that's going, going. But I tell you what, it is obviously one of the other activities that we are pushing, and is kind of like the zero trust thing. We have to now get better at zero trust because obviously that's definitely when we look at agents and everything. We have to do that. So it is enabling us to do, or it's helping other people go, yep, get it now, and then kind of get the funding with the projects to kind of drive other activities. Yes.
Because that's one of the things that we do, is that we operate in a zero trust model. So we actually treat every agent as hostile, and in that regard, and it's really, really important to factor that in, because you cannot make any assumptions, because the attack surfaces, as you were mentioning earlier, they're growing, they're exponentially, right, as these start to roll out. So it's a real thing. So Ray, as we start to tie this episode together, for people who are listening who may be interested in a career in InfoSec, especially as it relates to AI, what recommendations would you have to somebody to where they could start? And like, you've got an amazing bookshelf behind you. I can't see some of your titles. What books would you recommend people read?
Well, as I said, I typically listen to audiobooks myself, right? But
Yeah.
there's It's funny. So I don't really have any recommend. I listen to, as I said, podcasts or watch YouTube videos or kind of like just shorts to kind of, because it's obviously the snippet. As I said, I don't. Some of my security reading isn't probably that kind of relevant, or my listening to, sorry, isn't that relevant for kind of some of this stuff. But what I was asked, ironically, I'm mentoring a few people inside Philip Morris's kind of thing, and they were asked the same question. They were like, "How do I do this? How can I get where what you're doing?" And I was like, "Well, just do it." Right. And I don't know if the saying is like the land of the blind, the one-eyed man's God, right? At the moment, everybody, as long if they start putting the effort in, they can be that kind of, they show a bit of an inclination that they want to do it, they can do it. So like, well, one of the guys that he's like, this is what I do, this is what I do in my area. I was like, okay, well, look, there's so many AI implementations that we could use for your thing. What you need to do is now show it, tell your line managers, tell your kind of this is how we can do it. Give them examples, even if it spends, like, if you want to get serious, just try and just go and show and learn how to do these things, right? And then show people, right? And then once they see it, they're going to go, all right, cool, like, go, your new job is now to do this. And then you're just going to get more and more and build up and build up. Go away, do some training. I have done some inset training on kind of developing AI in the business or whatever, but that was an interesting course, and it did help with some other training. If you want to get into governance, there's some governance training out there that would be useful. Like there's IAAP, I think it is, the IAGP kind of AI governance practicer. If you wanted to get into that, but if you wanted to get into cybersecurity, I don't think the risks are specifically different. I would definitely say read the OWASP and follow the OWASP kind of framework and the MITRE Atlas. Look at that, read about that and how it's potentially how you could potentially learn about some of those things. If you wanted to do, like, I'm an ISO 27001 lead auditor. It's expired probably. I haven't done an audit for ages, but go away and do the ISO 42001, because then you'll get to learn what to look for, etc. So there's plenty of avenues, and it's the right time is now, because it's such kind of a niche kind of topic. You kind of, don't get me wrong, as I said before, my experience, I came up kind of like one of the old school routes for, I'd done my MCSE and Windows 2000 and kind of done loads of other, courses, and come up kind of that kind of route, in a networky space as well. So I kind of come like from the ground up kind of thing. But now I would literally start with, as I said, start focusing and reading, and obviously all of the material that's available. Now is, as I said, it's the perfect time to do it. And there's so much free material around on this topic. It's just the only thing that's stopping you is you from not doing it. Right? That's all I would say, really.
That's great advice, and it's something that I give to my adult sons on a regular basis.
The only person stopping you is you, right? Is if you want to do it, do it. No one's going to say no, right? And if what I would say, if you're in a business, tell your line manager, tell people that you want to do it, because people are not very good at mind reading, right? You need to tell them, and then they'll get their problem 9 times out of 10, they'll support you.
I remind my wife daily that mind reading is not one of my superpowers.
And that's a perfect end. Thank you, Ray.
It is. Ray Ellis, it's been amazing, and thank you so much for participating on the event. That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Agentic Insider. Thank you for listening. For show notes and more, please visit agenticinsider.show. To learn more about Iridius, visit iridius.ai. We'll see you next time.